Okay, so let's talk some more about Harry Potter. So what I've just read is chapter 2, so Vanishing Glass, Letters from No One, and then Keeper of the Keys. And from this, I figured out the title. So before we talk Harry Potter, let's talk Socrates for a bit, okay? Now, in Socrates' Apology, which is his defense at court before he dies, he gives an account of why everyone's so angry at him. He gives the basic account that one of his childhood friends went to the oracle at Delphi, asked them who the wisest person was, and received the answer of Socrates. But what happened was Socrates didn't believe this. He didn't see himself as being wise, and in fact he thought he knew absolutely nothing. So what he did was he went around the city looking for people who were wise and trying to figure out what they knew. So he went around to a bunch of important people and asked a lot of questions. A lot of questions. And what he figured out is people didn't know much of anything. And this is what annoyed people. Because Socrates basically proved that all the people that they thought knew something knew nothing. So in him, believing he knew nothing was actually the wisest man, because he was accurately understanding what he knew, which was nothing. So they ended up killing him for this. And he accepted this. So you can already see some reflections of Harry, especially if you know the entire series right there. Harry has to die at the end of all this. And he has to accept that he's going to die. Just like Socrates. But we're not there yet. Okay, so in the first book, especially within the first few chapters, we definitely do not have a major Harry-Socrates comparison. He doesn't have the willing sacrifice yet, nor does he really even have the philosophical side. But what he does have is Socrates' Socratic method. That is, he asks questions. Now this is interesting, because we do learn from Harry himself that he's always been discouraged from asking questions, particularly from the Dursleys. Yet he continues to do so. Now what actually happens is more clear when we have a comparison, which Rowling gives us beautifully. And that comparison is between Harry and the Dursleys, and to a lesser extent, Harry and Hagrid. Now, let's begin with the smaller incident of the snake. So he does not expect the snake to answer, even though the snake has already given signs of being somewhat intelligent when he gives the eye roll. But Harry asks it questions. Where are you from? Brazil. Was it nice there? He finds out that the snake was born in captivity. He does not assume that he already knows these answers, especially once the snake does start actually answering the questions. By comparison, the Dursleys assume constantly. From the very get-go, you see the Dursleys assuming that Harry is going to be A, magical, and B, for some reason, dangerous because of this. Once Mr. Dursley yells at Harry that motorbikes can't fly, Harry notes that the Dursleys always get uppity when things didn't act the way they're supposed to, even if it was in a dream or a cartoon. The comment he has with this is that it's like they thought he would get dangerous ideas. And in truth, that's what the Dursleys are assuming. The Dursleys are assuming that Harry gets it in his head that motorcycles should fly, that he'll suddenly magically make motorcycles fly. But this isn't how Harry reacts. Even when he finds out that he is in fact a wizard, he does not react with assumptions. He reacts with questions. He asks Hagrid tons of questions, even within the short time that they first meet. Like, I haven't even got to Diagon Alley yet. I'm talking about when they're in the shack. Hagrid, again, becomes then a foil to Harry's Socratic method. One, because when he finds out that Harry doesn't know these things, which he assumed Harry did, he gets angry at the Dursleys. Much in the same way that the Dursleys get angry when they assume Harry is thinking about magic. So you see, Hagrid and the Dursleys have something of the same response, like knee-jerk reaction. Except maybe Hagrid could be considered more in the right for this reaction. But really, you can't assume that the Dursleys, who don't like magic, are going to teach Harry about his magical abilities. So that assumption is a big one, and it affects how then Hagrid reacts to it, which is in anger, because the Dursleys should have, but they didn't. So Harry has the Socratic method of asking questions. He doesn't get upset. The one time that you might consider him getting upset is when he finds out that his uncle and aunt knew. But again, he does not explode the way that Mr. Dursley or Hagrid have at this point in time. He simply continues asking questions of the person who's giving him answers, Hagrid. But he does it in a polite manner. When Hagrid admits that he has difficulty saying the name Voldemort, Harry asks if he could spell it and write it out rather than saying it. This makes Harry more, at least sympathetic, if not empathetic, towards other people's feelings. He understands that this is a difficult word for Hagrid. He asks why, but he takes that answer. When he starts to use the word Voldemort, he stops himself and says, "You know who," because he understands it makes Hagrid uncomfortable. When we get to the discussion about Hagrid being expelled and not supposed to use magic, Harry asks him why he was expelled. Hagrid does not answer. Harry does not push. And that is the really neat thing. Socrates was known to push and to ask questions constantly. Harry does not. He asks questions, but he knows when to stop. And that's what I really like about him.